Hi everyone, just waiting on Yashu. I feel like I'm getting better at starting these lives, but I'm not totally sure. Let's see. Hey Yashu. Cool. So as you can see, Yashu pinned a comment, or I pinned Yashu's comment. We'll be talking about Desi career choices. Let me see if this is still working. Yeah, we'll be talking about basic career choices and what that means, and not just within the US, but also in India. Hey, Yashu.
Hey,
Hey, girl.
what's up?
So,
What's up?
what's up? So, I was just telling everybody that we're going to be talking about basic career choices. So, let's kick it off. What do you think?
So, for all of you viewers who are tapping in, my name is Yashu Rao, plus model and confidence coach, here with, of course, India Currents, and of course, my amazing co-host.
Hey, I'm Srishti. You can follow me at Problems. I never start with this and I always forget. So thank you for reminding me about it. So yeah, let's talk about our topic.
For sure, for sure. So today is an interesting topic. We're talking about Desi career choices, and the reason I picked this topic is because a lot of I don't know, but I have been going through a lot lately regarding my career, and trying to figure out, what's the right thing to do regarding being an engineer, being a model, wanting to do something creative. I always feel like I'm at war with myself. And lately it's been super stressful, as you know, Srishti. I'm doing my PhD in material science engineering, nuclear engineering, and it's been a hell of a ride. And sometimes I think like, oh, why am I Indian and having to do this? Um, how many of you can relate? For those of you who are Desi, how many of you can relate to, having to choose a very Desi acceptable career choice? Go ahead and comment below, let us know. But that's what we wanted to talk about today. And I wanted to kind of, we have a lot of viewers who are also not Desi. So I kind of wanted to take a moment to kind of educate them on this career hierarchy, right, that we have in our Desi families. So, just to let you guys know, and again, my viewers, if you guys have feedback, go ahead and type it in the comments below. But just to let you guys know, we have a breakdown when it comes to careers. We have, like the doctors, or they're up there, like doctors, medical doctors, that is, are like you're like the best kid on earth, like you're the perfect Indian child, right? And then
Hmm.
Indian American child. And we got a comment
Hmm.
here from AJ Ajay. He said doctor, lawyer, engineer. Exactly. You have like doctor, you got lawyer, you're engineer, and then business person, right? And by business we mean like revenue generating business, okay? Um, so this is kind of like the hierarchy. And then, and then anyone who's kind of outside of that, there's just like, oh, well, are they making money? So I feel like it's a very money driven mindset. Do you
Hmm.
agree? Do you think the hierarchy for Desi families is very just like money driven, not really passion or talent driven?
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty money oriented, and I get why, because in India, with a population of what is it, one, well, last time I knew it was like 1.2, is probably 1.4 billion or something now. And when you have that many people in a country, not, you have to be exceptional. And to be exceptional, you have to do the jobs that are most lucrative. And those are usually being a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, because that'll make you the most money for the least amount of time in school. I think being a doctor in India doesn't require as much time as it does here in the same way. So
Yeah.
there's that. And so that mentality then comes back with them when they moved and when they move anywhere, so that exists here, and those careers are lucrative here as well. And we have to keep in mind that, the people who came were the privileged, right? So out of the 1.4 billion people, like a 0.01% of them came to the US, because I believe South Asians only make up 1% of the population of the United States. And so when you have like a very small group of people coming and they're limited in how they can even come, right? So you can't come unless you have a skilled profession. So you're getting the people that are, first of all, we could only, most of the Indian population, there was one that came prior, like the Sikh population came as like farm workers and laborers prior to the 60s. But when the 60s, when the Civil Rights Act allowed for, other people of other countries to immigrate to the US, that's when most of the Indian people came, and they could only come if they had a skilled profession. So that's why the stereotype that exists here is that Indian people are smart, or they're all doctors and lawyers and engineers. But actually, that's entirely inaccurate, considering you have a 1.4 billion population of Indian people and other South Asians living elsewhere that aren't doing those things. So it kind of perpetuates itself. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, right? Like kind of coming back to that whole money driven mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I know you work for a nonprofit. Like, did you ever feel resistance from Like, what was your degree? If you can let people know, like, what was your degree in? And then now that you're in this profession, again, nonprofit, like, was your family cool with it? And then how was your extended family? Because I always know extended family always got something to say, right? So what was their kind of like take on it? And then I'll talk about my career, because my career is really
It's
interesting.
spicy.
Right.
No, it's spicy.
You're right.
You're spicy. Mine is a little bit spicy, but not as spicy. So, like, obviously, I actually wanted to be a doctor like every other Indian kid out there for whatever reason. Okay, I really did want to be a doctor. And so I went and I did my undergrad in bio, initially pre-med, and then I was like, no, I like academic science more. So I started pursuing that. And I was like, I'll still be a doctor. So, like, that counts, right? If I go into academic science. It doesn't, which is why you made that distinction. But I mean, it counts. It's just not as reputable as like being a doctor. So yeah, I was like very on that career path, and it was because I actually just didn't, partially I didn't know about the other careers, and partially I imposed that on myself, and then partially it was like what my parents and my mom and would say to me. And when I would bring it, like I brought it up with my mom a lot later in my life, like, I kind of feel like I chose, I chose the profession of being a doctor because you talked about it a lot. Like she wanted to be a doctor, and she didn't get to. So that's also something to talk about. Like, because she did all her schooling in India and then moved here before getting her, like, doing the medical boards and stuff, she never got to pursue medicine in the US because they wouldn't accept her degree. So there was a lot of, like, for her, like, lost career opportunities that she kind of imposed. I felt like imposed on me, but when I brought it up with her, saying, "You make your own decisions, you know, blah blah blah, like you can't blame me for your own life choices." So interestingly enough, she won't admit to it, but I feel like that's partially why I wanted to do medicine to begin with. And then, of course, I took a very nonlinear path with doing 500 other things and then starting working in nonprofit work. And they hate it. They absolutely don't understand. I mean, they understand wanting to help people and the idea of community seva, but they don't understand why I would pick the job that I do for so little money. Like, what am I gaining from it, right? And so for me, it's definitely this thing where I try to explain to them, like, I have the privilege of pursuing a career path that makes me really happy, and that may not be lucrative, but I know I'm doing the most for the communities that I'm in, and I feel good about that. Versus for them, I don't think a career option was as much of a gratification thing. Like, it wasn't something that they found as much fulfillment in. I mean, that said, my mom's a teacher, so like she isn't like making a ton of money, but she loves teaching. So I don't know. There's just this, it's the society, right? Log kya kahenge? Like they want people to think that I'm successful in the very traditional sense, but then it's like I feel successful in my own ways. I feel like, I'm my own boss a lot of the time. I don't have too much upper management. I kind of get to have my hand in a lot of things. Like I'm doing these lives, but I'm an editor. Like what does that mean? I get to do so many things. I get to wear all these hats. So yeah, that's like long story short, essentially, yeah, not happy about it. I'm not making a ton of money. The question is always, what are you going to do next? Because this is not something you could do for the rest of your life. And I get it, like it's not sustainable. I would have to make more money at some point. But I mean, you kind of, you know what I'm talking about because I know that you have a similar kind of story actually. So yeah, why don't you tell people?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And for everyone who's tapping in, again, my name is Yashu Rao, and this is my co-host Srishti, and today we are talking for India Currents Desi Talk, coming to you guys every Tuesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And today we're talking about Desi career choices, especially for people who are not from South Asian descent. You guys probably don't know the amount of pressure that some of us feel because we are constricted, in a sense, to fill roles of being engineers, doctors, lawyers, and businessmen, and you can't be anything else. And then the stigma, that comes with, pursuing something outside. And, similar to what Srishti was saying, so for me, I had always, I was always bad at school, hands down. I'm a slow learner. My parents would never get me tested for, ADHD, focus, or anything like that, which I still feel till this day, I have issues concentrating, reading. I have difficulty reading.
Have you been tested? Have you been tested now?
No, I have not. And I think it's just because now I'm just at a point where I'm I've just been so trained to just be all right, just keep going. Just doesn't matter anymore. But I also do, a part of me also doesn't, I think a part of me doesn't want to get tested because then it would just validate certain things. And then it would also kind of be not shady, but I don't want to put myself in a position look at what my parents did. So it's just better for me to just okay, whatever. But kind of coming back. So school had always been hard for me, but my parents just kept pushing me to and my dad especially, because he's a world famous scientist. So just to put perspective, right? He's
a really?
He's a world famous scientist.
What's his name? Are we allowed to know?
I'm not gonna say his name on this live, but
okay.
But yeah, so he's just very well known in the science community. And then on top of that, and then my sister, who's studying to be a surgeon, a cardiovascular surgeon, and so it's two very.
You have a sister that's doing exactly what they want from her,
right.
And then there's you. Is that the yeah? Okay.
And then me, right? So the retard of the family or whatever. But
my God, no.
My dad always saw himself through me. So I think he always used to push himself on me. So I'm basically doing a very, very similar, not the same degree, but a very similar degree to what he did. He did mechanical engineering. He has 2 PhDs. So he has one in metallurgy with the specialization in nuclear physics. And then he has another one in chemical engineering with the specialization in something else.
2
but anyway,
PhDs? How long does that even take?
He did he got his first PhD when he was 19, and then he left India. Yeah, he left India and then went to London, where he did his second PhD, and then he was at Berkeley, and then he was at Carnegie Mellon, and then that's when we started seeing the naval research kicking off in America. And then he joined naval research, and then something else. DC. Yeah, basically. So anyway, coming back to what I was saying. So I just had this pressure, right? And my mom, for her, she's from a really small village. And so but she did her master's degree, which was huge. She was the only one who was, I think, that much educated in her whole family. So she had a master's degree and she was a principal for a school, and then she got married, came home, became a housewife. But anyhow, everyone was just so educated. So the pressure to be educated was super important. And I always tell people, I was almost a high school dropout, right? But my parents would just never give up on me, for which I'm thankful for. I always talk about this, and if you haven't checked out the article about rejection, Desi rejection, be sure to check that out at india.currents. But again, So for me, like always just having to go through this. Then I went to college and I wanted to be a teacher, right? Like I wanted to be like a kindergarten teacher, or like a second grade teacher, and my parents wouldn't have it. They're like, and eat what? Like you would make no money. And then and then they were like, just listen to us, like just listen to us, and I promise, like life is gonna be beautiful. So me, I would just be like, well, okay, fine. Like I would just kind of, it was just pressure. It was like, all right, fine. So then I would go ahead. I took engineering courses. I failed courses. My parents would pay so I can redo them. You know, so like I went through a lot of these ups and downs, but ultimately all they wanted from me is to just like get my science degree. So I got my bachelor's degree in chemistry. After which my dad was like, well, master's only takes like a year, maybe 2 years. Like, it's not even going to take you that much time. Like, you might as well just do it. Like, it'll be good for you. Like, I promise you, it'll snap right by. And I was like, okay, well, if it's only going to snap right by, I guess I will. So then I did my master's degree. And then after that, and I told my dad, like, I am not doing my PhD. Like, over my dead body. Like, I'm not. Y'all can do whatever you want. I am not. And that was right when, like, Trump came into office. There was like, you know, the budgeting freeze. I was like on my butt employed, like not having any employment for like 6 months. And then finally after like, and then my mom, and then just like living home is hard after you're like 20 something. So then my dad's like, well, I think you should do a PhD. And I was just like, fuck it. Okay. So then I ended up with this PhD, but I went in like, but I'm going to be applying for a job. So as soon as I get a job, I'm leaving this PhD. This is just so I can make like temporary money. But of course, that was definitely not the narrative. Because even then, he's just like, well, it's just, yeah, one more year. Like, one more year. What's one more year going to do? And, like, it was just, like, always inch, inch, inch. And now, like, you know that my PhD has been so turbulent. And I've just been wanting to just throw in the towel and just be like, listen, this is just, like, not working out. But even now, like, my dad, like, he'll call me and he's like, don't lose hope. Like, we're going to get through this. Like, we're going to get through this.
Yeah, it's like a joint effort, isn't it? Like in their minds, it's like this collective experience of all of us going through it, which is it's very interesting. Sorry, this is a side note, but it is really relevant. But the idea of like your career, it's like a family career.
Yes.
Your steps, your successes, and your failures are all they take it on as though it's theirs. And I find that to be so interesting because I'm like, you're independent of me. Like, you've been so successful. You live in a nice house. You have nice cars. Like, everyone knows you did it right. So why does what I do mean so much to you? You know, like, why?
So interesting because we see this dynamic. And for those of you guys who may not know, we see this dynamic in Desi families a lot. It's always kind of centered around like once, like for example, you get married, you have kids, life revolves around your kid and making sure your kid is successful, and then they're married, and then they have kids, and then your family kind of just revolves around it. We're very family structured and tied. That's always how Desi's families have been. So as an example, right? Like in my like whole Desi community, there was like probably like a couple of doctors, right? I think my sister was one of the only I think the only female doctor like in our little community that we grew up in here in Washington, D.C. But I remember like everyone would just kind of be like supporting it, like, oh yeah, like they might call my mom and be like, oh, like you should go stay with Sarada, you know, you should go stay with her for a month. Like I remember when Sridhar was in medical school, like, you know, we stayed with him for 1 month. Oh, and then when he got married, when he was doing his fellowship, like, oh, we take care of the kids, you know? So it's like part of the process, right? So like my mom just came back from staying a month with my sister, because my sister broke her leg. And so it's just like part of the part of the parcel kind of. Like I know for a fact, like my mom says this all the time. She's like, yeah, like, you know, your sister will get married and everything, but your sister and I, we're going to stay together because, you know, I'm going to have to take care of her kids, you know, when she goes to surgeries and stuff. And then, like, it'll be nice if you were, you know, in the area, too. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really know if I want to live back. You know, I want to move back to the DMV. And then, you know, she's like, oh, no, but you should because your sister's going to be here. I'm going to be here so I can, you know, take care of her family for her and cook. You know, I have to cook for her. And I'm like, Mom, she's like 30 years old. What do you mean you have to cook for her?
Yeah, she cooks for herself.
Yeah. And then you see like other aunties too, like we'll call my mom and they're like, oh, hey, no, I was just in the neighborhood because we were just dropping off food for our doctor daughter, you know? So it's like
Oh
People are
yeah,
just
or doctor daughter, not the other
right,
daughter. You
right,
have to say the profession before daughter.
right.
That's really funny, actually.
So it's just
They,
like families are supporting you so you can be that like successful in your career. Now, rewind a bit, right? I also am pursuing like my creative side too. I have my coaching business. I have my modeling career going on. Like say I was this say fast forward, you know, I am famous and I'm doing things and I'm on tour and I need my mama near me, right? My mom will not come on my model tour or whatever because that's not a career choice she would support. I might need the support, but she would never admit that. So for me, like sometimes she'll call me and she'll be like, "Hey, how's it going?" And I'll be like, "No, I'm just like really stressed. I just have so much going on right now. I have this to plan, and then I have that to going on, and I have a workshop that I'm hosting, and I've got this paper." And she'll be like, "Stress? You call that stress? You know what stress? Your sister just did like a 24-hour surgery the other day. Okay, that's what real stress is." And I'm like, "Why are you putting down what
comparing.
exactly?" And then it comes down to the fact that her career choice is superior to mine. So in my family, at least, I've always felt like when I say retard, I always felt like the retard kid because my sister was always one level. Like even though now I'm getting my doctorate and I'm going to be an engineer, I'm in that hierarchy that we talked about. I'm always going to be beneath her. So that pressure is that feeling is always there. Actually,
Yeah, I
me
think,
doing
well,
my
I think,
PhD is like a
hmm
guilt trip. I'm doing my PhD because of guilt I hold on to. I always say this,
hmm
like there's only one reason I do my PhD, and it's because of the guilt I hold on to for being this not so good brown kid. I don't do it because it's my passion or I like it. I do it because I'm holding on to the guilt of going through high school and being that trouble kid. And I don't think
yeah.
anyone deserves to be in that mental space, you
No, I
know?
don't think so. But I think like the idea of, there being a profession that is more burdensome than another, it's interesting because it's not just for your kids, right? That's actually just like a like it would be they could relate that to like the kid next door, like the other auntie's son or themselves, right? Like there's so many times where I'll tell my dad like, "Oh, I'm like pretty stressed out. I have all these things going on. I, you know, I have to like juggle a lot of things. I'm a little bit like I'm just a little overwhelmed." He's like, "You don't work as much as I do. You don't have as much to do as I do." And I'm like, what does that mean? Like maybe
Yeah.
also that maybe we have different capacities for what we can do. Like maybe you're right. I
Absolutely.
don't know if you're right or not, but like I some people are ready for a 24-hour surgery and some people are not. Like I don't think if I was to be put in that scenario, I would do a good job. That's why somebody else is doing that job. And that's
And
why
you
I'm
hit the
doing this
nail on
job.
the head. That is so true. Now, think about it this way too, right? My sister was doing her fellowship interviews, and I had my sister needed help with practicing her interview. So I had her schedule a one-on-one meeting with me as a confidence coach, and I walked her through the steps and I gave her some tips about public speaking and this and that. And my
Mhm.
sister called me after her interviews and she was like, "Dang, like after talking to you, like I learned so much." It all shows like the other day when I was doing my sex workshop, for those of you guys who might have missed it, article dropping real soon about my, top 10 sex tips for you guys. But anyhow, when it comes back to, when I was doing the workshop, I sat 24 hours putting that thing together. I worked my butt off, and I had a photo shoot the next day, and I had an event that I was hosting after that, and I had three different, like, I had a lot going on that I don't think my sister would have been able to do because her skill set is
It's
different. Mine
different.
is
Yeah.
different. I'm
Right.
creatively intelligent, and she might be medically intelligent, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, or like it has a more scientific approach. I think this boils down to why are there so many different kinds of people in the world doing so many different kinds of things, and it's because everyone has like skills that are, you can develop skills really anywhere if you put your mind to it, but like some people are more inherently ready to do one thing or have the emotional and physical capacity to do more. Like I definitely know that I have, like growing up in high school and stuff, I had friends that were like very on top of being able to do, staying on top of everything. They were able to do that. They didn't struggle. They were just smart and could do it. And I would have to put in a lot more energy. And it just, the amount of toll that it took on my mental health in order for me to reach the same level sometimes was too much. Like, because I wasn't inclined in that way. I was inclined more creatively, like you said. I was much more of a writer and a dancer and a singer and an artist than I felt I was a, math driven, science driven person. That doesn't mean that I can't learn those things. It just means that it takes me more effort and more time, and it's just a lot more energy that I potentially can't give. So, and then that, mental burnout is like a real thing. You see it happen with all these kids that go to college and then like, do these successful careers.
This is an important topic for all of our viewers, especially if you are like our generation and even younger, like Gen Z, like I'm talking to y'all. My niece, right? And I love sharing the story. When she was a baby, like she went to this, like she was in this like daycare, right? And then she was in kindergarten, I guess. And they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? So some people were like, well, I want to be a ballerina. I want to be a this. And I remember my cousin made her like basically wrote like, literally, I will never forget this, cardiovascular surgeon.
Specifically.
Right?
That's great.
And it never stopped there. It became to a point where this niece of mine went through, she had how we had like the classes, the tutoring classes, right? Kumon and stuff like that. So she was in from the age of like literally from first grade till now. She has a English Kumon or tutor. She has a math tutor. She has a science tutor. She does keyboard classes. She does horseback riding classes. She does tennis classes. She does swimming classes. I'm not even making this shit up. Like, she does so many classes to the point where now, like, for example, when she got into high school, she had like no friends because she like by the time she was like ready for calculus math in 9th grade. So then she would have to like transfer to community college where they would have the class. And so like, where are you building your social skills? Like, where are you building your friendships? So for the longest time, she was a loner. Kids used to pick on her. People used to like make fun of her. And then on top of it, other Desi aunties would be like, would tell that, because she would complain at, like, she would call and be like, oh, like my daughter just had a really rough day today because some other Desi kid, because they're from like Edison, New Jersey area, so it's all
it's all brown, right? People.
Right. So like another auntie told their daughter, like, don't talk to XYZ because you don't need to be, you don't need, like, don't talk to her. It's just competition. It was driven through competition, right? Like, there was a science project and they were supposed to pair up, and then they were just like, don't pair up with her. Like, let her find her own partner. Like,
That's really fucked up.
Just like pulling
that's next level.
apart.
Yeah, Edison is not lit. Whoever wrote Edison is lit. It's not lit. I think it's my friend Adam. It's not lit. It's lit in that, you have a cultural community, but the thing is, like, the hyper competitive, the societal implications, the pressure they put on kids. I remember even now, like, as an adult, my dad would be like, you know what that kid is doing now? He's at Google doing this and that. And I'm like, okay, and what?
Right.
I don't even know him. Why are you telling me about him? And then my parents get mad at me because they're like, we're just trying to have a conversation. I'm like, but why are you telling me about someone I don't even really know? Like, you're telling me because you want to make me feel bad. And they're like, no, you're imposing your own views on this statement. And I'm like, I'm really not. Like, why would I know what you're trying to do with some sneaky manipulative shit. I see you. But I love my parents. I'm not mad at them. I think it's funny now because as an adult, like, we're both older and we have, like, I know you're still kind of going through it a little bit, but we feel more comfortable and confident in who we are, and like, other people can't impact us in the same way. But when you're young, that shit really sticks with you. It stays with you. And it's traumatizing. And I definitely, like, one of the things my parents would say to me was like, going to community college was basically the worst thing I could do. Going to community college Right. And like I now in retrospect, I'm like, first of all, community college would have been great. You would have saved money and you would have given me time to discover what I wanted to do because otherwise, like, what am I doing with my degree? I have a 4-year college degree that what it does is it opens doors because people want to see a college degree, but like I don't do anything with that. Like I'm not in a biology field. You're not doing, I mean, you are actually doing a PhD, so you are in that field, but I'm not. I'm just
Right.
I'm like, well, what's the point, you know? And
Community
so,
college is amazing. I just like to say that. And shout out to my friend who was on here earlier. I met her during community college. And I'm so proud to say she went to community college. She got her bachelor's degree. She got her master's degree. She works a beautiful,
yeah,
amazing job for the state of Maryland. Okay. Like she is making dough.
she's
She has
thriving.
beautiful homes. A lot
Yeah.
of actually some of the amazing people, like I met so many people during my community college days that today, like one of them is like like two of them are employed for Amazon, just like the other people who went to like a 4-year institute from the get-go, right?
Yes, yes,
One of them is
yeah.
a doc, like two of them are like 2 or 3 of them are doctors in really like very, very good programs. Like people are doing amazing things. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter in this because me and my sister used to have a lot, she used to have a lot of ego. She would always be like, because she went to Georgetown, you know, she was like all prep girl, and I was community college girl. And so she would always look down. She would always, like, she's the one who really
That's
coined
even
it.
worse, right? That's even worse that your parents are pitting, they're pitting the siblings against one another. Like, that's not, like, your sister and you're both two different people. Like, you know, it's not great. I'm sorry, keep going. I just don't like that.
But with all of that being said, because I do want to wrap up, I know we have so much to say. We always have so much to say. It's such a good
Yeah.
conversation. But I do want to say, I want to drop some like interesting statistics, right? So just to like let you guys know, in America, okay, 77% of Indian Americans hold professional positions. Okay, so what are professional positions? Okay, that's anything to do with information technology, like IT, computer stuff, medicine, scientific research, managerial, and professional specialties. Okay, so we're talking about like high-end degree holding, you know, jobs. And so of that, you have to remember that more than 50,000 Indian Americans are physicians in practice. Okay, so that doesn't even require that doesn't even talk about like the retired doctors. We're talking about right now. That's how many people we got going on. Okay, so that's crazy, right? 10% of medical students in the U.S. medical schools are Indian origin. So of all medical schools, 10% of all their applicants, all their students are Indian. So that's crazy. 7% of Silicon Valley high-tech firms have Indian CEOs. I feel like,
Hey, Silicon
right?
Valley. I'm not surprised.
Indian
Go ahead.
origin engineers account for 34% of the total engineers in Silicon Valley.
Oh,
And you have
yeah.
to remember, this is Indian, okay? I'm not even talking Desi. Desi is South Asian. So there's going to be a whole other, like, there's going to be other, you know, countries which fall into the Desi sector. But just, you know, I found stats regarding Indian. But this is super interesting because we have a tendency to think, right, that's like, okay, well, that's because they're Indian. They come from India. India drives them to be like that. But that's not true. The highest or most popular degree choice in India is arts degree. That blew my mind. That is an arts degree. Arts degree is the most popular degree in India. People think it's engineering and it's all these other things, but it's not. It's arts.
Well, isn't
But
it because it's capped? Like the amount of people that can apply, like the amount of admissions there are, and then also the way the boards work in India are different, where like essentially only the top 10% can even apply to engineering schools. So that's I would think that's why it's skewed towards the arts.
it's right. But I know that and according to these stats, right, we see that when they did a comparison, because over the past couple of years, right,
Hmm.
not even years, but I'll probably say like the decade, we've seen a rise in private engineering schools. So basically, there's these other schools which have been that are not centralized by the government, which are making like basically outputting more engineers out in India. At arts colleges as well, but we're seeing this rise, and it's so interesting. In 2008, between 2008 and 2016, right? So that 8 years, right? There was a 75% increase of students getting their arts degree, but a 272% increase for
Whoa.
engineers. So you just have to understand that there was definitely, right,
Hmm.
this big push for engineer production, I'm going to call it, that came from all these like other private institutes that were opened up in India and whatnot.
Hmm.
So that just puts things into perspective. And then 107% increase for science degrees, and then 279% increase for education degrees, which actually was really interesting. And then 151% increase for medical degrees. So we're seeing the steady like increase, right? And that really kind of like blew my mind.
Yeah, I think what you said with the institutions, all these private institutions opening up and giving access to uh, people who can pay their way in or can apply in or whatever, that's becoming more it's just becoming more accessible potentially. I don't have thoughts on the Indian education system, to be honest, because it is so convoluted and I'm not there, so I don't really
Right.
know. But yeah, I think that is an interesting statistic that it's increasingly rising, and that arts was actually more commonly chosen as a career
Mhm.
path because I'm
At one
wondering, like,
point. At
yeah,
one
yeah. I
point.
think I
Mhm.
think arts also has a lot of things under it. It's like political science, philosophy, like everything falls under the arts. I think it's like any social science, and then actually even more things. I think maybe psychology might be under that as well. So I would
Mhm.
like to do more research on this one. Why is the arts the one that everyone's picking? What were they doing with the arts degrees, you know?
Right, exactly. And I'd say, like, at the end of the day, though, right, coming back to just to wrap it up with a bow, when, whether you're in America, India, whatever country you may be in, and I read this really interesting article, like Trump era H-1Bs being out there and how the South Asian engineers have become undesirable in countries. Like people are
Hmm.
just like not even offering jobs to these immigrant, engineers anymore. And we're seeing a real struggle. And I'll get more details on the article, as we talk about this throughout the month. We're gonna be talking about careers and career choices. But just to let you guys know, whoever you are, if you're a Desi, and you have a passion in a particular field, right? I always encourage people to balance. You might, if you're not a person who can stand up to your parents and you're not a tough cookie like Srishti right here, and you're more like me, who holds on to emotional baggage, who holds on to, like, oh, what will my parents think? Or like, I got to do this for my parents kind of thing, then I personally recommend balancing it. As much as I do work on my PhD and whatnot, I balance my life out and make sure that I'm also giving time for my passions, whether that's, being a confidence and lifestyle coach, being a model, or doing whatever I do when it comes to the creative stuff. So I highly encourage people to do that. And also to remember that ultimately it's your choice, and whatever education program you choose, all of us end up in the same pool. I say this because right now I see such a push for people to want to get into Harvard, want to get into Yale, want to get into Duke. And then also for immigrant students who come in who like try to get into these very competitive programs, and then you'll see these immigrant students, some immigrant students say who don't have a lot of money, they go to like Indiana Agricultural School of whatever, and they're getting the same degree. But guess what? At the end of the day, they all end up working for the same company. They all become business administrators, business managers, or whatever at Deloitte, you know? And I hear this narrative a lot where they're like, well, what was the point of me spending 3 times the amount of money you spent to be doing the same job you're doing? And I hear this a lot, this narrative a lot. So when it comes down to education, even with like AP courses and stuff, right? Like seeing like my sister took everything AP. All 8 periods were AP. I took one and I dropped out of it. Like I could not do AP courses, but at the end of the day, I'm getting my doctorate from a top 10 school in America, right? She's getting her doctorate from a medical school, right? So at the end of the day, we all end up in the same pool. We're all making the same money, right? So it's like, what is it that you really want in life is something you guys need to think about. And don't be influenced. Like, I know people get influenced by watching like Grey's Anatomy, House, MD, and things like that. I remember the narrative between my cousins. They were really my nieces, right? I have two nieces. My nieces was just like, I want to be like, you know, Yang in from Grey's Anatomy, and then the other one's like, well, I want to be like da 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 da. And I always say, like, why do you have to be like someone you see on those TV shows? Like, why don't you figure out what you want to be? I didn't figure out what I wanted to be for a very long time, but now I know what my passion is. And I
Mhm.
think that's beautiful, because when you love what you do, you excel in it and you become the best. And when there's value, there's money, period.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think you're definitely a product of your environment, and both of us are products of our environment, whether or not our parents think or don't think it. Like I definitely think that, when you said I was I'm a tough cookie, it's literally because I think I don't have the same level of pressure maybe that you do, because I have a younger brother and we're both kind of off the beaten path. So in my life, like there isn't as much of that I have to live up to this standard. I think my parents are disappointed, but I know that I'm happy and that really helps. And I think the one thing that you said that's always important is balancing, like even if you're doing a career that you like, balancing other portions of your life, because your career is not going to just you're not defined by your career ever. So even if it is something that you really like doing, initially in your 20s and 30s it seems like this thing is the thing for me, and I'm a career woman and blah blah. But you know what? At the end of the day, you're just a human being. You're going to get old, and there's going to be things that you're going to realize like you didn't do and that you didn't see and that you didn't interact with the spaces you were in. You didn't think about the people you were around. You didn't treat the things with respect. Like, be cognizant of what you're doing. That's always important. I'm glad that Yeshu, you have both your passion and your career, and I'm also glad that I'm able to do a lot of things and be happy doing those things. I can genuinely say, and I hope you can too, that I'm gonna turn 30 this year, and I'm not upset about my life choices. And you're a little bit younger, and I think you seem happy with your life choices. So yeah, just do the things that you do for yourself. And with that,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna end this talk. But please follow the Yashu Rao, follow India.currents. Please, please, please follow India.currents. We need your help. And I'm Srishti Prabha. This is Yashu Rao. And join in next week at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our next Desi talk.
Love
Bye.
it. See y'all. Bye.